This woman was terrified when she ripped open the lining of her jacket. Right after putting it on, she felt something was wrong. It was too tight. Looking closer, she quickly saw why. Something was hidden inside. The jacket that started it all belonged to a young woman named Jessica Lewis. It had been hanging in her closet for more than 2 seasons, but as winter approached, she needed to dress warmer. When she picked it up, she noticed a musty smell around it, indicating it needed dry cleaning. Jessica trusted the dry cleaner to remove the lingering smell that bothered her. Just before Jessica picked up her jacket, she was pleased with how it looked. It came at the perfect time because there was a storm brewing outside. She put on her freshly cleaned coat and walked through the rainy streets, seemingly unfazed. However, her mood soon changed. Halfway home, she began to feel uneasy, not just in her mind, but in the jacket itself. As Jessica continued home, her jacket became wetter from the rain. The left side started to tighten severely around her chest. This wasn't a minor issue. It felt like something was seriously wrong with the coat. Soon it became so tight that she couldn't stand it. Something was growing inside, and it frightened Jessica. Ignoring the rain, she had to take off the jacket. She unzipped it and threw it on the ground. It must have been odd for people passing by to see Jessica standing in the pouring rain, staring at her jacket. But it was fortunate she did, because when it fell, the inside lining was exposed, shocking Jessica. She looked on in horror at her jacket on the ground. Just beside the zipper on the left side, the jacket had bulged tremendously. Not only that, it seemed like something was moving inside. The movement of the jacket scared Jessica to the bone. "It's just a jacket, it shouldn't do that," Jessica thought out loud, stating the obvious. The pulsating movement scared her every time it happened. Is there an animal in there or something? Jessica wondered to herself. She tried to calm down, mostly because she saw people staring and hated being the center of attention. After a minute, she mustered the courage to crouch beside the jacket. Jessica cautiously ran her fingers along the lining and felt something protruding. It looked white and almost hairy. Maybe an animal was inside. But how did it get there? The pulsating had stopped, but the jacket remained swollen. She couldn't put it on without knowing what was inside. With a pang of sadness, she tore open the lining. Nothing jumped out, but inside she found a bulging white canvas bag under tension. Carefully, she made a hole and packaging granules spilled out, swollen from rain. Why was this bag in her coat, and what was it protecting? Suddenly, a phone rang from within the bag. Startled yet intrigued, Jessica brushed aside the granules and answered. "Hello? Who is this?" Silence followed, then a male voice said her name and hung up, leaving her bewildered. Before she could process it, the phone rang again. This time, a text from an unknown sender. But this text message had a little more to say than the caller did. Unfortunately, it did not answer any questions the young woman had. It only confused her more. The message read, "Look for the roads, the truth awaits." What is all of this? Jessica now spoke with a louder voice. It was clear that she was becoming frustrated. She was fully drenched from the rain, her jacket was messed up, and she was standing in the middle of the street with a strange cell phone. There was only one logical thing to do now. "I have to get back to that dry cleaner," Jessica said to herself. The rain had stopped at that point, so Jessica picked up the jacket from the ground and didn't even bother putting it back on. She held all the objects in her hand and walked to the store, hoping to get some answers. The dry cleaning owner was already standing behind his desk when Jessica entered. She came in with a stern look on her face and put all the objects in front of him on the counter. Jessica pointed out the tier and explained the phone that was hidden inside. "Do you know anything about this?" But the dry cleaning owner made a face that was unmistakable. He shrugged his shoulders and said that he was just as confused as she was. He had never seen that phone before in his life. He handed back the jacket to Jessica. "Personally, I'm sorry. I can't help you," he said. But there was one thing he could do. He first apologized for the damage to her jacket, even though she had done it herself. He felt like it was also the shop's responsibility. He offered to repair the damage. But that last piece of information fell on deaf ears, because that's when Jessica saw something that shot a bolt of electricity through Jessica's heart. Behind him hung multiple jackets on a clothing rack. Nothing special, of course, it's a dry cleaner, after all. But one of the jacket's labels was addressed to Jessica RHS. The young woman hounded out loud. This was too weird to be a coincidence, Jessica thought. The text message specifically said that she had to look out for the roads, and now she saw a label in the same suspicious shop that combined her name with that cryptic message. She then realized that the caller wanted her to come back here. She knew she needed that jacket, and she also knew she wanted to get out of there as quickly as possible. So Jessica apologized for her confrontational approach just now. After that, she told the owners that she was also there to pick up the order for Jessica RHS. The owner glanced at Jessica briefly, but seeing no reason to doubt her, he set down his pen and turned around to find the matching label. "Ah, here it is," he said, handing it over. Jessica eagerly took it and hurried out of the shop. She dashed around the corner, placed it on a park bench, and searched its pockets. The first two were empty, but in the third she found an envelope. Opening it, tears welled up in her eyes. Inside were several photos of herself at different ages. Who took these? Was someone watching me? Jessica wondered aloud, tears streaming down her face. These photos were unfamiliar, unsettling her deeply. Most showed her alone, intensifying her fear of being watched. Yet one photo stood out. It pictured her at around 3 years old, smiling with a man she didn't recognize but felt oddly familiar, like someone from her childhood. On the top border of the photo, scribbled in black pen, were the words, "The family home on 123 Harold's Drive." Jessica knew she had to go there immediately. She rushed home, and from there it was only a 15-minute drive to the address mentioned. Arriving at the place, she saw a small but cozy house with a wooden porch and many flowers surrounding it. She held up the photo. It was a perfect match, even the flowers were still the same. You might think that Jessica was nervous, but somehow she felt determined and calm in a way, like she was meant to be here. The young woman walked up to the doorbell and rang it. An old man opened up. He had kind eyes and told Jessica that he was expecting her. "Come inside." It was a wild experience. Who was this man? Was he the one in the picture? Jessica sat down, and the man immediately apologized for all the mysterious things that had happened during the day. He said that he was the one who had placed the phone in her jacket, but he had a good reason. Jessica was curious to hear the old man's so-called reason, but before he even had the chance to speak his first sentence, he was interrupted by the front door being unlocked. It swung open and a voice was heard from the doorway. "Dad, I'm on my break. Are you hungry?" That voice. "I know who you are," Jessica said, squinting her eyes in frustration. Yes, she recognized that voice instantly, and now the angry woman rushed towards the front door to meet it. It was the dry cleaner's owner, and now he was here. He'd have a lot of explaining to do. Jessica now stood just half a foot away from the man, almost pressing her body into his, frustrated. She started yelling at him, "You filthy liar. You told me you had no clue what the phone in my jacket meant, but you did know something. Why else would you be here?" The dry cleaning owner took a step back, initially frightened by Jessica's reaction. Jessica was waiting for his response, but that response came from the old man in the living room. "My son didn't know anything about this. I did all of it behind his back. Come back here," the man pleaded. They walked over to the living room and sat down in chairs across from the old man. He took a deep breath and started talking. "All right, like you might have noticed, this man here is my son. His name is Andy, but I am not just his father. I'm also yours, Jessica." Jessica was stunned when the old man shared this news. He explained that he used to be married to another woman. Their relationship ended in divorce, but before things turned sour, they had a daughter named Jessica. That's her. The divorce had its complications, he said, wiping his eyes. Her mother filed a restraining order against me, seeking sole custody. I didn't agree, but the court ruled in her favor. I respected that decision for years, even started a new family, wife, son, happy, until today. Over time, I learned my ex-wife were married and legally changed your last name to his, Lewis. When your jacket came in today with both names, I recognized it instantly. I couldn't do nothing. My son manages customers up front, and I help with steaming in the back. Privacy to slip that phone into your jacket. I'd wanted to reconnect, but I got nervous when you answered and hung up. He hoped texting would help, but revealing he was her father outright wouldn't work. So he subtly guided her to this house, and it worked, he said with a careful smile. But the most important part came next. He looked at his daughter and hoped she could forgive him for not contacting her all those years. He had no choice. There was silence. The tension made him visibly nervous. Jessica sensed it. Then she broke the tension, hugging him warmly. It was a feeling he hadn't felt in 30 years. "Why forgive me just like that?" Jessica asked. "It wasn't your fault. I followed the rules. It must have been hard for you. Let's consider us family again," Jessica said, promising to reconnect. There was much to catch up on. Months later, they were like a close-knit trio. They visited often, seeing similarities in their personalities. Remarkably, Jessica's mom let go of her resentment, blessing their new family life to blossom.